see white lies dancing between the lines. She's an atheist. Carousels in her mind, spinning all in her eyes. She's an atheist.
Hello and welcome to Digital Freethought Radio Hour on WOZO Radio 103.9 LPFM right here in Knoxville, Tennessee. Today is October 4th, 2020. I'm Larry Rhodes, or Doubter5. And as usual, we have our co-host Wombat on the phone with us. Hello, Wombat.
Roses are red. Violets are blue. Trump has COVID. My thoughts and prayers to you.
Especially prayers.
Yeah, all my thoughts and prayers. Every single last drop. Just
and I guess
it out.
today are Dread Pirate Higgs, George, and Red Leader. Welcome. Digital Freethought Radio Hour is a talk radio show about atheism, free thought, rational thought, humanism, and the sciences. And conversely, we also talk about religion, religious faiths, gods, holy books, and superstition. And if you get the feeling that you're the only non-believer in Knoxville or East Tennessee, well, you're just not. There are several atheist, free-thinking, and rationalist groups that exist right here in Knoxville, and we'll be telling you how you can connect with them right after the mid-show breaks. Also, did you know that there was a streaming atheist call-in video show broadcasting here from Knoxville? It has been for over 10 years now. Did you know that?
Yeah, but some people call it human chicken fighting. And I'm like, you have some of the best martial artists using all the different fighting styles.
Of chickens?
Yes, they're fighting in a cage. But like, listen, it's really hard to do that punching and grappling and jujitsu and all that stuff. It's really cool. So I would recommend you check it out.
I will, but it's not the show that we're talking about. It's not an atheist call-in streaming video, but we'll tell you more about how you can watch that after the mid-show break and even maybe get involved with it. If you'd like to interact with us during the show, go to Facebook, search for Digital Freethought Radio Hour, and use the messaging function to send us any comments or questions. Wombat, what's our topic today?
I don't need evidence to believe in God. That's that's the topic for today. But before we jump into it, how about we lead it to our own Dread Pirate Higgs for our weekly invocation?
Well, I have something. I haven't been working on limericks lately. I just got back from up north, but I do have a quote from Christopher Hitchens, which is kind of related to what we're talking about today. Religion is not the belief in a God. Religion is the belief that God tells you what to do.
Now, deism isn't really a religion per se, and that's a belief in God.
Oh,
it's
maybe
not
it is.
Theism per se, but Dale has more experience in that than I would. He might be able to speak to it.
Speaking of which, why don't we go around the table and I forgot to say, you got to lead us on the final ramen, Dread Pirate.
Ramen.
Okay. So, how about we do a walkthrough, Dale? You know, what you might want to help us out for new listeners. What is deism, and is it a religion?
Yes, it's a religion. It's a recognized religion. Is classified as one. It has some differences to it. For example, we do not embrace tax-free religious privileges. It's a belief that there is a God, but he doesn't do anything. And we, well, as a matter of fact, I guess I should announce it now. And I know this is going to disturb Larry because he's really worked on me for years. We must have had, one or two conversations about deism versus atheism?
One or two whole conversations. Oh, my gosh.
I doubt I'll get upset.
Yeah. So I'm afraid I've got to disappoint you. With everything going on, I've realized that during the founding of our country, there were a lot of deists, of which I turned my back on in recent weeks. And now I'm beginning to miss my friends. And now I realize that our democracy is in huge, huge trouble. And in fact, we may lose it. And I would really hate for this fine deist experiment to go down in flames without there be at least one of us there to go down with it. Therefore, I am officially returning, backsliding to deism. And when the country goes down, There will be at least one of us.
It was
And by
either
the
that
way,
or
where were you
it was
guys?
either that or change your name to John Hancock. Like you have those two options, and you're just like, it's got to be one of these two.
Or
dudes.
Jefferson. But,
George, how you
I've
feeling?
never
I'd
had
love
a
to-
problem with deism. I mean, they don't have any dogma. They don't cause any real problems in the country. So, welcome back.
Yeah,
Thank
yeah.
you.
George, you're looking splendid. You're at a higher frame rate and better clarity than I've ever seen you before. What's going on with you?
Well, my former computer has crashed.
Oh no!
I went to a website that attacked my system, and so I'm back on a real computer this time. The one that
Okay.
I used to be on is my beater computer. It's the one that I really beat around, and this is a more serious machine. So everything is different. I just got it running now. I mean, just for this meeting. So
Nice.
everything's
you're like on a brand new
everything's
computer, brand new setup, basically.
well. It's a brand new used computer. I never use used new computers anymore.
Looking
Okay,
good.
okay, fair enough. Yeah, works good. Anyone who's watching the video play of this, Joe, we're just coming in at near 4K quality. Like I feel like I can reach into all the textures on his forehead and just dip my fingers into them. Really, really nice.
Yeah.
Cinnamon butter. So we got some new folks here. Eric, you just joined us. If you're, how you been? for
Hey,
the
pretty
last
good.
week?
Yeah.
Welcome, Boudreaux. Welcome,
Yeah,
Jake.
Hi,
looking good,
Boudreaux.
Boudreaux. Looking good.
Mike.
Also, Jake with the face mask on and everything, man. It's good to see you,
Hello.
dude.
Public place.
How you been?
I've been fantastic.
How is the life of coffee shops? Is it like a bustling business? It looks super busy back there. It looks like everyone's
Yeah,
enjoying
it's
themselves.
super busy. Thank you very much. Yeah, I ordered fresh toast. It's a little bit more than a coffee shop, I found out. It's a brunch and lunch place.
Very cool.
Nice. Wow, look at you. Okay, that is the being in a digital free thought
Yeah.
radio hour podcast
Yeah.
while in a brunch lunch
Right.
place is
Jake,
the most
how do you-
absurd
how do
combination
you-
of things.
How do you eat in a restaurant with
With
a
a
face
mask on.
mask on? Yeah, how do you do
Well,
that?
Well, I
Slowly.
just ordered food, so I'm leaving it on for a little while until I get my food.
What city are you in, Jake? Where
I'm
do you
in
come
Springfield,
from?
Missouri.
What, Missouri?
Springfield, Missouri.
Okay. Just wondering
Oh,
where our
wow.
reporting was from.
Isn't that where they filmed The Simpsons?
Sure.
It was one of the contenders.
Yeah.
Sure was.
All right. So now I'm leaving it up to our own Dread Pirate Higgs. How have you been? What's the legal turnaround? How you feeling?
So I showed up at court, but had failed, unbeknownst to me, to file what was called a notice of hearing. And so the master was not even aware that the case was at hand. And so I've had to reschedule to sometime in November, the week of the 16th of November. So,
Okay.
but a part of finding that out is that the lawyer friend that I've been consulting with I can request of the master to have him sit at my table as a consultant who can whisper in my ear and shuffle papers, can point his finger at different things on the table. He can't speak, but as a retired lawyer, he can certainly intimidate.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah. November's not too far away from here.
It's
either.
not.
So yeah, that's not too bad. That's not too bad. You
Yeah.
also said you went up north, which I thought was funny because it's like, how much more north is there after Canada? North Pole, like Alaska? Like where else can you go? Where else
Well,
can you go?
halfway up. So I'm at the very bottom of British Columbia, which is the
I'm
40
just giving you a bad. I'm giving you a bad time. I'm sorry. I didn't mean that seriously.
Tyrone, he's right at the Montana border.
I know. I know some geography. I could do that good.
So-
Boudreaux,
Okay.
I
Sorry,
just
sorry,
wanted
I'm
to
so-
hear Dread Pirate say reschedule again one more time.
yeah.
Reschedule?
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
I love it. I love it. I like saying schedule sometimes too.
And we
I'm
say
so
roof,
fancy.
as not roof.
I don't agree with that.
Huh.
Okay, you've lost your privileges, Dread Pirate. Larry, how you been? It's good to see you. Oh no, his volume is out. What's going on? Okay,
Oh,
so
that button push.
there we go.
No, I've
Yeah.
been fine. Everything's cool. Just spending a lot of time on Facebook and playing World of Warcraft. I'm retired
Hey.
now, so.
Speaking of Facebook, I heard you saw some really interesting comments made on Facebook that you might be wanting to talk about today.
It kind of got this topic started. The guy said, I made a post that said, science says that never once has the answer been magic. And I posted a meme. Guy came back to me and said, yeah, well, that's a claim. The claim that there's never been magic is a no. And I tried to go back to him several times saying, no, it's just they can't claim that they cannot investigate magic because there's never been any instance of supernatural entities or things that they could investigate. And he started coming back to me, and no, I went back to him and said, okay, well, what about all these claims of Christianity? And I listed 27 claims that I have on another meme. And he says, I don't make any claims about Christianity. I just believe.
Yeah. So like basically he's saying like, hey, I'm not saying Christianity is true. I'm just saying I believe in Christianity or I believe in the Bible. I'm not saying anything in the Bible's true.
Yeah, and the thing about it is, he might be the one person who says that, or maybe even 10 or 12, but every preacher makes these claims. Every authority of Christianity makes these claims that a soul exists, a heaven exists, a hell exists, sin exists, one thing after another, that God can mate with a human and have a hybrid child. Just one thing after another, all of these claims, supernatural, extraordinary claims, and he's saying we don't make any claims. That's just dumb.
So I want to clarify the delicious part of what he said, because he's not saying the Bible doesn't make claims. He's saying the Bible does make claims, but being a Christian doesn't mean that you have to believe that they're true. You just have to believe the claims.
You don't have to repeat the claim.
You just like, hey, I'm not saying whether or not it's true. I'm just saying as a Christian, I believe whatever this book tells me. And that is an interesting thing. I find it to be potentially dangerous, because what if the Bible said something really, really bad? Or, what if a person had a holy book that said some really horrendous things about
like you should kill gays or something?
Oh, well, I don't think anyone would ever write that down in a holy book. But yeah, in the grand hypothetical sense, yes, possibility. Or like you should own slaves and beat them within certain parameters.
Equally improbable.
I want to go around the table and I want to think I'm trying to format like a really easy question, but like, can you be a Christian and not believe and also not believe anything that's in the Bible, but just
he's
believe
saying
the Bible?
He does believe it. He just doesn't claim it is true.
He doesn't claim that it's true. So can you be a Christian and say you believe the Bible, but also not believe that it's actually true? Or there's something here. What do you think? I'm going to throw this to Boudreaux first. Maybe you can help me format a question we can go around with. But do you feel like what I'm trying to ask? Like it seems like he's trying like this invisible line. Where are we going with this?
This sounds a little bit like the notion I've heard where you have someone who's a great scientist, 5-6 days a week, and then on the Sunday they go to church, and then they just they ignore, like there's something in their brain where they separate the evidence-based work they're doing here, and then on Sunday they just take it all on faith. So I'm wondering if that's kind of part of it. It's like a schizophrenia almost, or some kind of cognitive dissonance maybe, where you're just So okay, I think there are plenty of Christians out there that believe the Bible, but they don't actually literally believe the claims in there.
They don't live like the claims are true. Like somebody's watching their every move because they do things that are illegal or immoral all the time, even though they say that God of morality is watching them 24/7.
I think that's very true. I don't think Christians, for the most part, do act as if they believe the Bible were true, or else we would see a difference there. I wonder, Jake, you're about to put foot in his face, and he's put himself on mute. He don't want to talk right now. Dread Pirate, do you think Christians believe or act in a way where they actually literally believe the Bible is true?
Oh man, I don't know. I don't know anyone that acts as though the Bible is literally true. There are people, of course, that make the claim that they believe that parts or the whole Bible is literally true, but I think it's actually impossible to act like it's literally true.
What do you mean by impossible? There was a claim. I want to know about that. What do you mean by that?
Well, because it would be inconsistent with one's own behavior, wouldn't it? I mean, if you believe that these supernatural things, have happened or can happen, but don't act like in the real world, you still work within the confines of, physical limits and all the rest of it.
Sure.
People don't walk off buildings with the expectation that God is going to lock them up. So the idea that you can believe in the supernatural or act like the Bible is true in that supernatural respect is not consistent with how people actually behave.
So it's like people still go to the doctor. People don't invest in running shoes when they need to fly across the ocean in a plane. They're just, no, I'll just walk across. I'll just really believe on this day, and
Right.
just run right across. It won't be a problem.
Exactly.
Okay. There's some merit there. So it seems almost like you can't say, well, none of this is true, I'm just saying I believe it, which is two separate things. It seems like there is some like cross section there. George, if you're available, do you think Christians actually act in a way where they take the Bible as a literal truth?
When you say if you're available, what do you mean?
Oh, because your video wasn't showing up, and I didn't know if you.
Oh, can you
if
see
were
me
still
now?
with us or not. No, sir.
Am I visible?
Yeah, Dread Pirate. What do you?
I just one of our viewers says, "Fake it till you make it."
Fake it till you make it. I hear that a lot.
Well, to answer your question, I don't have an answer. I don't know what Christians believe.
That's true. But you can tell from their actions of whether or not it's consistent with what the Bible promotes. I don't know if you're familiar with the Bible, even as a lifelong atheist, but
Every time
correlation between.
Every time I try to read the Bible, I fall asleep. I've tried many
Numbers
times.
gets you every single time. Yeah.
But the language it's written in is insane. It's not English.
Yeah.
I don't know what the hell languages the Bible's written in, but it's not English. It's
there's a lot of versions of the Bible that are hard to get through. Also, Numbers is really hard to get through. Worst third chapter of all time, second chapter of all time. Deuteronomy is second, right? So it'd have to be third. Anyway, Dale, throwing the question at you. I'm going to try to format this. Feel free to change it if you need to. But do you feel like Christians actually act in a way that is consistent with someone who believes the Bible as a literal truth from cover to cover?
I understand your question, Wombat. George, you might want to try the New International Version of the Bible or the Contemporary English Version if you would like more contemporary language, and you might get through it a little bit better.
Maybe.
Wombat, no.
Yeah.
Or yes. I don't know.
Or yes.
I'm sitting here, with this question, but back to you, Wombat.
Fair enough. Mm-hmm. Jake, I'm going to put you on. I know you're enjoying some delicious pancakes right now, but I got to figure out this from you. In fact, I'll throw out a specific example. I believe there's a verse in the Bible where Jesus is saying, "Hey, I stood on top of a mountain and I literally saw the entire world," which seems to me like an impression that like the world's flat. And we've been having some conversations about this a while back ago, and I'm wondering, like, okay, there are Christians who believe in a young Earth that is also flat. That is part and parcel that comes with it sometimes. But do they actually behave in a way that the world's flat? Like, are they cognizant of the fact that even if you don't think planes are actually flying around the world, there are still planes that are doing it. There's still satellites that are doing it. You have a cell phone. Your clothes fabric had to come from somewhere. This lettuce wasn't grown in this country. How do you think this all works? What's going on? When you call someone and they say, it's not 3 p.m. here, it's blank, blank, blank time. Like, how do they compartmentalize it? Have you talked with flat earthers who maybe believe things that are in conflict with reality but are consistent with the Bible? Like, how do you go about that, Jake?
You don't need to have the answer to the question that you have. You just need to question it. And so it's not so much that the Earth is flat. It's that it's not what they say it is. And we think it might be flat. We think that's our hypothesis, but it's not what they say it is. And we know that. So that's our starting point.
Okay.
I don't need to know how planes work just that they're probably lying. They cover something up. They're lying about how big the blueprints are on the fuel tanks to say how much fuel they can carry.
Yeah, it's a worldwide conspiracy with 90% of the people.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah. And just to provide some context before we go to George, Jake and I have been talking about flat earthers and their arguments for flat Earth, and some of them are biblically based. And I'm wondering, like, what are the logic that flat earthers are using to compartmentalize, clear, obvious evidences versus the idea of, like, maybe it's just a conspiracy. And it seems like what Jake was saying is you start off with the premise of you can't trust science, like something fishy is going on. And then from there, you just throw in some very comfortable half-truths that fit the conspiracy model, but also don't need to have to necessarily answer all the questions, just enough to be like, hey, it's good to be skeptical, right? Great. Let me tell you about steel beams and jet fuel. George, I'm throwing it up at you. You want to say something?
Well, I've been looking at the issue of science being under attack in the United States recently. We have what, quote, alternative facts from the mouth of somebody famous. And
go ahead and name them.
Go ahead.
Well, a woman who works for our president. But anyway, so I was having I was having an imaginary conversation with my neighbor about COVID-19. The statistics for my county have been going up and up and up in terms of infected people.
Oh yeah.
And a lot of people, when I talk with a certain person in my neighborhood about COVID, he always discounts the statistics in different ways, by saying, they're not considering all the people who have recovered from it, or the people who are the people who have died from other causes that are included in the statistics. There's always a way of discounting it. So my imaginary comeback to him is, what's that?
Moving the goalposts.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my response is, well, you had stents put in your arteries. Did you go to your mechanic to have the stents put in? Did you go to your minister to have him put in the stents for you? Or did you go to an expert, a scientifically trained person, to put the stents in your arteries? Did you go to a doctor?
Did you pray them away?
To have the stents put in?
Yeah.
Yeah, did you pray them? Yeah.
Dale, what do you got? I see you.
That's my imaginary conversation. Yeah.
Dale.
What if you're wrong, Wombat, and the Bible
What
is
did
right?
I say that I could be wrong about? What's the claim that I could be wrong about?
You were casting doubts on the idea of Jesus flying to an exceedingly high mountain and seeing all of the nations, all of the kingdoms on earth, right?
Okay, yeah.
Well,
I don't know if I said
possible
fly. I
that
think
you are not thinking out of the box or not using your elastic thinking. Perhaps what the Bible is saying is actually true, and I think I figured out the way it is.
Oh, is there a book that we can figure that out that you'll plug at the end of the show? Which is the best time for us to plug things like this?
Well, it's my book, but I don't need to be plugging it. No one's looking at it anyhow. However, the largest mountain in our solar system is Olympus Mons. Now, if you stood on that, an exceedingly high mountain on Mars, you would effectively be able to see all of the nations on Earth. Or if you stood on a small...
No, you wouldn't.
Yes, you would. Hang on, buddy. If you stood on even a small mountain on the moon that faces the Earth, then if you sat there for about 24 hours, you would see all of the kingdoms on the Earth.
But not at the same time.
Maybe you should look at some of these things in the Bible as being brain teasers or riddles, and maybe see if there is a way by which it may become true. Back to you at Freethought headquarters, Wombat.
Sure. Actually, now I'm going to have to do my math on this, but Neil deGrasse Tyson would probably argue that it'd be more than 24 hours because the moon
it'd be less.
The moon is moving.
12 will do it.
But the same face always faces
not more, less, 12.
No,
anyway,
Wombat's right. Yeah, there's a far side of the moon.
Yeah.
I said on the side facing Earth. The moon does not rotate. One side always faces
Right.
us.
Okay.
No,
Okay.
the
So
moon does
it's all about
rotate,
location, baby.
And
Okay, class over.
and the
Back to
Bible
you,
says,
The world, if the
Guys,
Earth
we're gonna
was
go-
flat,
Doubt.
if the Earth was
Doubtfire
flat,
has been
you'd
waiting
pixel all of
patiently.
it.
Doubtfire has been waiting patiently. Doubtfire, I'm
On.
going to ask you a question. So we're talking today about a Christian who, when confronted with claims that the Bible is making, said, "Hey, I'm a Christian, but I don't have to believe that the Bible's true. I just have to believe the Bible to be a Christian." I know. And so we were talking about, like, what are the repercussions of a person who has that sort of mindset? And
Well,
is his life consistent?
well, you
with
can't
someone who-
believe the Bible's true without believing the Bible's true, which is what you were just saying. He's saying, I don't make claims that the Bible is true to other people. I don't claim
Yeah, he's
it's
saying
true. I
belief
just
isn't a claim
believe
to
it.
be questioned. He's
Right.
saying, like, I don't need evidence to have this belief. I'm just saying I believe.
Right.
And it's like, okay, Larry, I get your point. But the question still is like, why not believe in things that are true? And what are you really saying when you say, well, I'm not saying I agree with these claims. I'm just saying I believe them. It's just like, what are you really trying to say about the Bible at that point? Doubtfire, I'm going to give some time to pontificate on this. What do you think?
Okay. That sounds like some sort of presuppositional type of position.
Okay.
So it seems like a lot of people that say stuff like that, and I've talked to a lot of Christians lately about that very thing, and they'll say, well, you presuppose that science is the best way to know things, or I may state that, or someone say, well, science is the best method to know things are true. And the question would be then, well, how did you figure that out? Science? If science is the best way to know that, how did you know that? And so it's kind of a circular argument. And they'll say, well, just as you're being circular about science, why can't I be circular about my Bible beliefs? So it kind of gets philosophical. So for me, I can just kind of briefly tell you what I think about that whole thing is that, well, first of all, what do I know? Well, I know that I experience an existence. So I exist. And from that, I can figure out, well, I can infer things, right? That's part of my experience. And logic, cause and effect seems to work. And so from there, I can kind of do inference to the best explanation of things. Science seems to work when it's done right, and we seem to build on that. And so that's evidence. We can make predictions, and those predictions can, be verified. And if they are, and they're repeatable, then I think we have justification to believe things. As far as the Bible presupposing that, well, can we make predictions on the Bible? Can we say, well, if this Bible thing is true, can we verify it and repeat it, and everybody can observe it, and we can all kind of share in that verification? And so then we have a problem, because we have over 6,000, or really over 10,000 Christian religions that all have a different interpretation of the Bible in itself. So we're kind of, and everyone's free to believe what they want, in my opinion. I mean, I don't have a problem with that. But I don't know, for me, just speaking for me, I would want something that I could verify, predict and see repeated over and over and over. Not sure the
And something
Bible
that's
does
willing
that.
to improve. Yeah,
Right,
I think
right.
science
Now-
also is the thing that improves over time. Dred, you raised your hand. I'm wondering what you think.
Yeah. So, I was just thinking about the comparison of faith to science, and that there's a tautology being employed by science in the same way that is being employed by faith. And I would disagree, because science is a methodology. It's faith is not a methodology. There isn't a prescribed path that you take to faith. It's just belief in the absence of evidence. Whereas
Or in the
science
face of
relies
opposing
on
evidence.
verifiability and a methodology in order to determine what's real and what's not real.
Yeah, I can summarize faith in one sentence or one verse. I can't do that with science. Science is
Right.
a much more complex set of tools to figure out how the universe works as best as we can. It's by definition a methodology. All right. Hey, we're going to take this to the break and then come back with some really cool things. Larry, why don't you take us out?
Okay, this is Digital Freethought Radio Hour on WOZO Radio, 103.9 LPFM, right here in Knoxville, Tennessee. We'll be right back after this short break.
To the curious, the inquisitive, the seekers of knowledge, to the ones who just want to know about life, about the universe, about yourself. Not cute questions, big questions, ones that matter. To the rebels, the artists, the free thinkers, and the innovators who care less about labels and more about truth, who believe nonconformity is more than a bumper sticker, that knowledge is more than words on a page. You're young, you're old, you're powerful beyond measure, and the fuel of that power is not magic or mysticism, but knowledge. The things you see, the things you feel, the things you know to be true. Sure, some will doubt you. Let them. Dare to think for yourself, to look for yourself, to make up your own mind. Because in the eternal debate for answers, the one thing that's true is the power of logic.
Hello, and welcome back to the second half of the Digital Freethought Radio Hour. I'm Doubter 5. We're on WOZO Radio, 103.9 LPFM right here in Knoxville, Tennessee. Today is October 4th, 2020. The Freethought groups that you can join here in Knoxville, well, there's the main one is the Atheist Society of Knoxville. We've been around for 18 years, over 1,000 members. You can find us online at knoxvilleatheist.org, or you can go directly to Meetup and just search for Knoxville Atheists. By the way, if you don't live in Knoxville, you should still go to Meetup and search for an atheist group in your town. Don't find one? Start one. Right. And with us on the show today, we have Dread Pirate Higgs, Jake, George, Doubtfire, and Boudreaux and Dale, or Red Leader, excuse me. What were we talking about there, Wombat?
So we were going over the classic Shakespearean play Romeo and Juliet, which I found to be very impressive from all the poetry that Shakespeare's written. I think this is the epitome of true romance. And the classic line that I love the most is like when Juliet's sitting there on the balcony, she's like, Romeo, Romeo, wherefore out the love? Where is the love? Where is the love? The love.
Where is the poison? Where is the poison? You left me now.
So we're going to go over some listener feedback. Mm-hmm. We're going to get some love from our audience. First one comes from our radio. Oh, so this is after our last week's topic, which is, hey, what do I get if I leave religion? What do I get out of it? And on Reddit, Constant Variation says one less pattern of thought amongst other things, which I thought was like a very concise way of saying that. Nathan Matthews adds, what do I get if I leave religion? I cannot overstate how freeing it was leaving my religion that had an in and out group. As Doubter5 said, I don't have to hate anybody anymore. So much time and effort focused on being in the right group and judging the wrong group. I don't have to worry about that anymore. I am free of the inner conflict over how to treat others and how to treat myself. And I think that's a real true statement. Really very good sentiment. Thank you, Nathan Matthews. Really great quality comments, man. Thank you. Dada's Trading Room says, hey, I had some trouble hearing Doubter5 on his last broadcast, but I'm subscribed to Let's Chat, which is my channel right here. And I get notified about the reposts. By the way, Dread is coming in loud and clear on the video playback. So you have a fan, Doubter5, who wants to just hear you, and that's great. I love that.
Thank you.
Loma says, I want to say that I hope Dread loses the legal action because I don't find religion to be a valid argument for any legal case, but I'm not certain whether he wants to win or lose. Can he elaborate more about his goals, and does winning or losing have any bearing? Dread, why don't you fill us in on that?
Sure. I think the idea here is to draw a very stark attention to the fact that there's institutionalized religious privilege in government, in court, in law, and essentially in practice right across the board. And this is what we're trying to draw attention to. So in trying to establish arguments for religions that are non-Christian or non-Muslim or non-Islam is really to demonstrate how ridiculous the whole thing is. And so
Yeah.
if we can, make a sound argument that the one judge eventually says, you know what, you're right, and let us have at it, then that just gives us the platform upon which to draw attention to the fact that the whole institutionalized religious privilege thing is ridiculous. It's got to stop.
You need it.
Very
You're putting an effort to normalize the idea that there's a silly thing afoot, because right now, not enough people are exposed to this standard that government has to say, you're a real religion, you're not a real religion.
Yeah.
And so whether they approve it or disapprove it, you're shedding light on an issue that most people don't even concern themselves with at this point.
Exactly.
Larry, what do you think?
Well, it's also pointing to what you just said about the government should not be in a position of pointing to a particular religion and saying this one's valid, this one's not. The government should not be in that position. It was stated in the Constitution there should be no establishment of any religion by a government, and it's unconstitutional on its face. So
Absolutely.
pointing out what Dread Pirate points out with the flying spaghetti monster is doing just that.
Yeah,
So
exactly. And the idea, so the in Canada, of course we have a different kind of constitution, but it does pretty clearly state in the Charter of Rights and Freedoms that the freedom to express one's religion is guaranteed there, and in practice it's not. So again, as long as you conform to one of the 10,000 sects of Christianity, you're in. But if you don't, well, then you're not. And one of our viewers actually says, I guess we have 10,001 Christian religions now because Moon Jesus has entered the arena. So, go Moon Jesus.
Yay.
So we
got a
got
new
Big Butter
meme.
Jesus and Moon Jesus. Oh, I'd love to see a fight between those two in a UFC match. That would be fantastic. Okay, so here's a quick little SE tips. I mean, we do a lot of SE, Socratic examinations, street epistemology, whatever you want to call it. I think it's good to just remind ourselves that we can talk to anyone about anything, and there's good means of doing it. And a lot of people on this call themselves have tried to learn how to incorporate SE a bit into how they talk with people, and found some really good productivity from it. And my small tip for this SE corner today is you can summarize a lot of SE down to just 3 questions that you can repeat over and over again, or in any order you want. The first question I like to ask is, what do you mean by that? And I find that is a great clarification question to figure out what someone means when they say things that obviously means a lot to them, but never really had a chance to think about critically. Like, try to get them to define that in their own terms, not from someone else's words, but from their own. What do you mean by that? Second, how can I test that? Or how can we test that? Don't make it a group project. And that is more of a question that doesn't put the weight on their claim that they're making or on them personally, but really about their methodology that they're using to get to their conclusion. How can I test that claim? How can I know if it's true? And then the last question is that test reliable? Because if it is, that's great. But if it's not, that says a lot more than you telling them that their claim is wrong. And so if you just do variations of those 3 questions just by themselves, you need to make some marvelous progress on your SE. What do you mean by that? How can we test that? Is that test reliable? Fantastic way to go about it. And everything else is improv and your own personal input. Jake, you've done some SE before. I've seen you do some. We've done some talks before. What do you think about those 3 questions? What do you mean by that? How can we test that? Is that test reliable?
I think you nailed it. I love summaries like that. It's SE, it can be kind of hard for me to wrap my head around sometimes, like where we're going. So little summaries like that can really help jog a conversation in the right direction. And yeah, those 3 points, what do you mean by that? How can we test that? It's excellent. I use that when I'm having difficult conversations with my family members.
Yeah.
And I think it helps because they're talking about what they believe in rather than me questioning it so much. It's where are you coming from? What led you to where you are right now?
Yeah. I also want to emphasize that it's not about playing dumb when you ask, what do you mean by that? It's trying to understand what they mean by a word that you have an impression of. because you guys might be using the same vocabulary, but completely different dictionaries. And so it's worthwhile to understand what they mean when they say words. That way you can come to a better, understanding of each other. I'll leave one more last question before we get to our main topic. Boudreaux, you've done SE with me before. We've gone out and done it before. You have a really great friend who's busy flipping houses that I'm sure you have a lot of deep conversations with. Have you ever asked him, what do you mean by that? How can we test that? Is that a reliable test?
That's an excellent point, because my buddy Chad and I have had a lot of conversations around this whole area of topics, and we generally agree on most everything, but there are topics where we kind of bounce ideas off each other, because I'm not certain. I believe it's the same way he believes, particularly he's a little more Buddhist in some of his thinkings, but I've never thought of actually trying to use SE on it, but I think that would be really interesting and a good exercise. So I'm going to take these 3, canned questions and give it a spin on our next talk.
Ooh,
maybe record it. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe record it. Anyway, so thank you so much. Oh, Del, feel free to weigh in. You're muted right now, sir.
Very good. I'd like to say that your SE stuff, while it seems to be very, very modified from what the ancient Greek philosophers were doing, it's very, very similar to what you would have in a psychiatric environment, where all you're doing is you're asking questions in order to get the person to pull out and examine his feelings or whatever else he needs to be examined. You ask questions in order to get for them to look at some different aspect. How did you feel when you stabbed your wife? What was was there anything that was happening between your wife and you before you stabbed her?
And why didn't you invite me to the wedding?
And the whole idea is you get the person talking by asking him questions rather than challenging them. And we've been using that for a long time, and it's pretty successful, but that's not what I wanted to talk about. I wanted to talk about Moon Jesus. Okay. That offends me.
Hey, nice transition.
It just so happens that offends me.
Oh, my baby. Sorry about that.
On what ground?
It just so happens that the moon has been claimed already by the deists. We were the first religion to set foot on the moon, and it is ours.
Is that how that works? Is there documentation or a military to support that?
Is your flag there?
So America belongs to the Native Americans?
There is a national flag there, but I'm telling you, the first religion on the moon to set foot on the moon was a deist. All you have to do is look up what religion is Neil Armstrong.
Well, it was Hindus and Christians that put them on the moon in the first place.
And that's all I have to say about that.
Good.
Can I ask what he means by that, and maybe how we can test it? Because
he's using that SE on me. Oh, damn. He's it's the SE. I'm melting. What it means about that is Neil Armstrong.
No, it was rhetorical. We got a show to do still. So we're going back. We are going back to the idea of, do you need to, or is there a difference between having a belief and needing evidence for that belief? When I hear someone says, hey, I don't care if the Bible's true, I'm just letting you know that I believe whatever it says, I feel like that's an admission on their part that they don't actually believe that the Bible's true. I feel like that is a clear, implicit statement about the lack of veracity. What's the right word that I'm looking for? Lack of coherency in the Bible, and that it just feels better to believe whatever it says. They're making like somewhat of like an argument from comfort. As long as I don't have to think about it, and as long as I get to still be called a Christian, right, I get to reap all the benefits of having a Christian card. And it doesn't matter whether or not I actually take it literally or not. Hell, I can't even tell you what chapters are in the Bible or what books are in the Bible. It just feels good for me to believe that there's a God looking out for me. That's such a lack of intellectual honesty on my part. Dredd, before I get on my rant, please stop me. Make me feel peaceful. What do you think?
Well, just a comment from Min, who's been a regular viewer here. He suggests that learning about other religions is a good way to combat religious privilege. That being one thing, how familiar is anyone here with anything other than Christianity?
My mom's Jehovah's Witness, my sister's Islam, or Muslim.
I'm familiar with nothing.
Okay, hey, that counts. That doesn't count as anything by definition.
One thing we need
Larry,
to clarify is that which Christianity? I mean, there's Catholicism, there's Protestantism, there's 1,000 or 10,000 different sects of Protestantism and Orthodoxy. I mean, there's not just one.
There used to be different versions of Catholicism, but they killed all the other competing versions.
And you didn't ask about Jewishness or
but those
Buddhists
are all Abrahamic. Those are all Abrahamic. I mean, there's Sikhism, there's Buddhism, there's Buddhism.
Yeah.
You know, are we
Eastern
just talking? Are we
philosophy.
just trying to Are we just discounting and talking about Christian religions, or are we also talking about religions generally speaking?
I'm talking about all theist-based religions, because there's even religions that don't have a God principle to it.
Well, there's some atheistic religions as well, right?
Yeah, the Eastern religions that don't worship a God. Buddha wasn't a god. So.
I'm going to throw out a quick little analogy that I've been using, that I'm working on. Whenever I hear someone say, when they realize that there are other religions, that, well, they're basically all believing my God. In a way, it's like, yeah, there's other people, but it's basically all just my God and with different hat, or they're just seeing it wrong. It's like when you go to the zoo and you have a deep and personal relationship with zebras or something like that, and when we take you to the giraffes and you're like, oh, those giraffes, they're basically zebras. I mean, their necks are longer, but they're basically still zebras. And when we take them to a lion, we'll take them to the lion den. It's like,
all the other religions are also worshiping the same God, but they're doing it in their own way. Well, that's a kind of a kumbaya approach to the whole thing, but they don't. In their next breath, they'll tell you that those other religions are going to hell. You know, they don't have true morality. They're playing both sides of the field.
And what I say to that is, I was thinking of an analogy, but I found that I would be better off not using it, because whenever someone says all those other gods are basically my God with a different hat, or they're just being worshipped differently, go immediately to, well, what do you mean by that? And how can we test that? Because now they have all the burden of evidence to demonstrate. I don't have to come up with an analogy to show that they're wrong. They made a claim. What do you mean by that? How did you test that every other person's God is your God? And is that test reliable or not? Because if it's not, that does more work on my part than for me to come up with a crafty flow chart to show you that it's an unreasonable thing for you to say. What do you mean by that? How can we test that? Is that test reliable? Fantastic way to immediately do some quick SE. Doubtfire, we've been talking a lot about do you need evidence to support your beliefs? Now I'll throw it out at you. Do you need, as a non-Christian, do you need evidence to support your beliefs, or would you like to have those?
Yeah, I would like to have as much as evidence that I could to base my beliefs on. Personally, trying to think of an example of something I believe that isn't just obvious.
What's wrong with an obvious belief?
Yeah, I mean, of course, and that makes a good example for people, I guess, when you speak to them. You know, I could say, well, I can claim I believe that the earth is round, and then we can talk about the science behind that, or we can talk about really anything. But it comes back to how can we test it? How can we know it's reliable? Is it repeatable? Is it verifiable? But you know, at the same time, those type of conversations can get tricky, right? You may be speaking to a flat earther who thinks it's just obvious that the world is flat, right? And then that's when you get into the whole thing. So I don't know. It gets kind of tricky.
I'm going to throw out something that touched on what Dale was saying. Yes, people have been asking people questions to figure out what they believe since Greek times, even before that even. But the difference between that and, say, like Socratic examination or SE is that it's not a teaching technique, it's a conversational technique. My goal isn't to show someone why they're wrong. I'm trying to understand how they're right. They have all the burden of evidence to bear. And I'm not assuming they're right by default. So they have to get me there to the claim. And so it doesn't really matter what the claim is. It's the path that they're leading me towards to the claim, and if that path is reliable or not. And all the focus is on the path. And if the path is reliable, I'll follow them to whatever conclusion's there. but we stop at every at every dead point. It's like, oh, this is the dead end. We can't go any further from here. We still can't get to your conclusion. Ooh, then I was trying to help you to get there. I'm asking these questions. I'm trying to find out how we can test this. I'm trying to figure out how reliable it is towards believing it as well. But if we can't get there together, that says way more than me saying it's wrong. And I'm not teaching you that. I'm just trying to understand it with you. And it turns out that we both can't get there together. So why are you saying you're there? And how confident are you really?
Right.
I feel like there's worth in that. It's a conversational technique, SE. It's not a teaching technique. And because of that, you don't have to worry about someone saying the earth is flat and trying to prove them wrong. You just be like, oh, the earth is flat? Maybe it is. How did you test that? What do you mean by that? Is any of the tests that you're doing reliable? Convince me, because you have that burden.
And, we can talk about values. Like people can say, hey, how do you prove this is valuable to me subjectively? You can't. That's for each person to decide. But say someone says, well, I believe in God. And you start going down that line of questioning, and then they start giving you a description of God or a definition all their own. What do you mean by that? What do you mean by God? Well, I mean just the universe, or I just mean nature or reality. That's God. Yeah. And then you can always ask, well, why would you use a different word for reality or a different word for universe? Right. And they may say, well, I have some utility with it. I find some subjective value in that. How is that wrong to do? And
no, is that a reliable thing to do? Find useful in a word and then just say it's the word? Like, is that a reliable way to apply labels? And could someone do that in the wrong way? You're still asking the three main questions. Is that test reliable? But you're just using different words. Eric, Dr. Green, I'm sorry. How dare I call you on a first name basis? I apologize, sir. I'm so sorry. Please,
only in the classroom.
Still. I got a question for you. Since you do the summit, have you found value? Have you ever found a time where you want to ask someone like a list of questions that are like really, really long, but you don't have the time or the capability of doing it in a big crowd? And do you see value in maybe just like a three, like, what do you mean by that? How can we test that? Is that test reliable? Like, is there room for that even in a summit setting? Summit, by the way, is, you might want to describe what summit is ahead of time.
Sure. So Summit is a gathering that we used to have indoors. Now we're having it outside and spread out and fewer people, but just a group of 10, 15 people sometimes, some food, and everyone sits around and we kind of take turns talking about different topics, similar to this, but it's in person, somewhat moderated, but it focuses on religion and science and things like that. A lot of fun, and it's something I love to do. It's interesting because Dr. Wombat, so one of the first times you came, you actually did a little SE on Paul, I believe, one of our Christian members of Summit, and it didn't go over well, I think, because it was so different from what we normally do. That was years ago, and that was before I knew anything about SE. It could be something we can kind of incorporate into like a phase. Like, we usually meet for 3-4 hours. The first hour is just kind of chatting and getting, maybe a topic here or there. But then, maybe stop and say, all right, for the next 30 minutes, we'll do a little kind of one-on-one with an audience. Maybe something worth trying. Yeah.
Or I'm thinking of like, if you're dealing with, what I found with SC or the summit is it has the tendency to, if one person thinks something as an outlier, everyone sort of gangs up on that one person. Yeah. No, and they ask a lot of series of questions to this one person that go off on different trails of thoughts and like different flowcharts and different arguments trying to get to some sort of logical trap. And it'd be nicer if it was just, if we all agree as a team that if we're ganging up on anyone, but if we formatted our questions to just, what do you mean by that? Could you just be clear? And then someone else can follow up with, well, how can we test that? And then someone else can follow up with, well, is that test reliable? Like, I think you guys could get to more productive grounds than the independent paths, which I wonder if that could potentially lead to a blowback effect to the person who still believes it. Because I imagine Paul's still very much a Christian, even after multiple summit trips.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. And Summit is different than what we're doing here and what you guys do on your channels. and one of the nice things about it is maybe we don't take it as seriously. And that's, I don't know, for better or for worse there. I leave a lot of summits going, man, I really wish I could have drilled down on that question, but I want that person to come back. So I don't, kind of don't want to corner people too much, but it's interesting. I think elements of it could be tied into to parts of Summit. So I think it might be worth trying, and I can report back too.
Yeah, this was a fantastic conversation. Thank you for everyone for coming. This is a full house. I don't know if my screen can handle any more tiny little screens of dudes talking to me. But we're more or less near the end of the show. I'm going to ask for some plugs. HowJesusDidIt.com by Dale. Find out all you need to know about Moon Jesus. Isn't that right?
No, it's not in that book.
Okay, which one should we check out?
Moon Jesus?
Moon Jesus is not in How Jesus Did It.
Okay.
Go to HowJesusDidIt.com and read for free online.
Yeah, I get it. You can get that book for free online anyway. Eric, what do you got on the table? What do you think that we can look forward to in the future?
I hope to have my Bad Religion cover ready next week. We're waiting on vocals and lead guitar, but we got everything else tracked, so that should be fun.
Nice, very cool.
And then I want to leave with the moon is actually atheist now because Neil Armstrong was an atheist. So checkmate.
I knew that.
For another different show.
All right. All right. Okay, so Doubtfire, what do you got?
Oh man, nothing much. I can't really say much that's going on that I should
Hopefully we'll be back next week. You can plug something you got. George, I already know you got nothing, but I'd still say check out New York.
Well, if I had something, I would say something. But yes, I want to plug early Doctor Who episodes with Tom Baker. I really like them.
Nice, very cool. Jake, do you have anything that you'd like to plug or recommend anyone check out over the next week?
Oh man, well you asked what's on the table, what's on the future in front of me. I mean, oh there we go. Beautiful.
Yeah.
No, I appreciate you guys very much. You've taught me a lot about SE personally, and I appreciate your content on Let's Chat. So I'll plug you, man. Appreciate it.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that, dude. Thank you so much. Dread Pirate, I'm wishing you for the best in November. It seems like either way, you're going to have some great stuff. Because if you get rudely told to go home, it's like, oh, that's perfect material, baby. And if you said, okay, you're right, it's like, ooh, that's perfect material, baby. No matter what, you're going to win. You just need to show up.
Yeah. It's a win-win.
It's a win-win. And everyone knows it. So it's just like, oh, to come back later. You can get your win-win.
So I just want to plug the fact that we are live streaming on YouTube right now. It is we do that Sunday mornings at 8 a.m. PST or Pacific Standard Time or Daylight Time, depending on what it is. And we've got the sound working, so please come on, have a listen.
Very cool. And you can find me at Let's Chat. Feel free to leave a comment. We'll go over them in the next week's show. We'll also post of this broadcast on Reddit at r/Street Epistemology. Feel free to leave a comment. We'll go over them on the show as well. And you can check out more of my stuff in Let's Chat. I am releasing more videos from Politicon. Just released a guy who thought we should all have universal health care. Really good vid. And I'll be putting out more stuff very soon too. They're all ready to go. Larry, all up to you.
Hey, this has been the Digital Freethought Radio Hour. Be sure to visit our website at digitalfreethought.com and our blog. We have our radio show archives there, atheist songs, and many articles on the subject of atheism. My book is called Atheism, What's It All About? And it's available on Amazon. I want to welcome all the old and new guests back to the show. Anytime, you're welcome back. If you're having trouble with your leaving religion beliefs behind, go to recoveringfromreligion.org. They have help for you. If you have any questions for the show, you can send them to us at askanatheist@knoxvilleatheist.org, and we'll try to answer them on future shows. If you're watching this on YouTube, be sure to like and subscribe and to be notified of new episodes. And remember, everybody is going to somebody else's hell. The time to worry about it is when they prove that heavens and hells and souls are real. Until, don't sweat it. Enjoy your life. Say goodbye, everybody. That's it. See you next week.
Goodbye.
Everybody, that's it.
Bye-bye.